Hey guys, my name is Loveless, and we are back with Mollitudo. Uh, Mollito. Don't know how to say the name, still, it's kind of weird. But that's how that goes. This one's not Quirk Knife, so it's gonna be a little bit more angsty than Quirk Knife. You already know the drill. Yada yada yada. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Bakugo, when I said you can join the investigation, I didn't mean putting yourself in danger like this. Katsuki rolled his eyes. He ignored Aizawa's disapproving gaze, as All Might radiated with concern and disapproval beside him. What if Todoroki didn't inform us? All Might added, in his tone admonishing as his face tensed in concern. You could have disappeared alongside Midoriya. I'm not stupid, Sensei, Katsuki snapped. I was planning on luring him out if he decided he wanted to exchange Deku. Of course, he added impatiently. Aizawa frowned harder. I wouldn't have gone by myself. I don't want to say this, but I can't exactly agree with you on this, Bakugo. All Might added softly, I know your feelings towards Midoriya has always been intense. What if he had insisted that you come alone, or dangled Midoriya's life in front of you? He's right. But Katsuki stubbornly filed that thought away as he snarled back in response. Aizawa groaned as he rubbed his face, placing the phone onto the table. Bakugo, stop doing things like this, or I will take you off the case. In the privacy of the break room where both teachers had dragged Katsuki into after Todoroki had told Aizawa between classes, Katsuki snapped. It's not my fault that the investigation isn't moving fast enough, he yelled angrily. It wasn't his fault that they were so fucking slow. So what if he placed himself in danger? He could handle himself, if it meant finding Deku faster. The feelings of uselessness bubbled over, the tension he had kept within him snapping like a taut piece of string. It's been 4 days. 4 days! God knows how Deku's feeling right now. He hissed, his lips trembling with the emotion in his voice. Bakugo. All Might looked at him worriedly. Did you see what that fucker wrote? Katsuki's voice broke. He said Deku was breaking. He was enjoying Deku's cries. What if... A hand landed on his shoulder. Firm and stable, Katsuki found his own chest heaving from all the repressed emotions within him. His throat ached. He wanted to cry, but he couldn't. He met Aizawa's eyes. They were soft, pained. There was understanding in his eyes. Bakugo, Aizawa said softly, soothingly. Katsuki hated the fact that Aizawa felt the need to be soft around him, like he was breaking down. Stop messaging him unless he does. I don't want you to do something reckless. When Katsuki opened his mouth, he continued, I won't take you off the case. I shouldn't have suggested that. You were just worried. Midoriya will be okay. Believe in him. All Might curled his hands on Katsuki's other shoulder. Young Bakugo, yet again I have failed you as a teacher. He sounded sad. You have the most contact with the kidnapper. I should have ensured that you were okay. He squeezed it. Let me tell you something. Whatever the kidnapper said, it was to cause you distress. He knows his words have effect. Katsuki stared at him silently before he shrugged off both hands. He looked at his lap angrily. We're trying our best to search, Bakugo, Aizawa affirmed. We will get Midoriya back. Whatever, he muttered. All the emotions drained out of him. Katsuki had always been an explosive person, and this applies to his emotions. He just felt drained now. He stood up, leaving both teachers looking concerned as he opened the door to see Todoroki. I don't regret telling Aizawa, Todoroki said slowly as to form a greeting. Kirishima hovered worriedly beside him, Uraraka and Ida close behind. I know, Katsuki said. He wasn't in the mood to fight back. Kirishima pressed close, concern radiating off of him in waves. He said softly, Don't do that again, Bakugo. If Todoroki didn't look over your shoulder between classes and read your conversation, it wasn't like he agreed anyway, Katsuki muttered angrily. Uraraka had tears in her eyes. You're not the only one who cares, Bakugo. Don't do things like this without telling anyone. We were worried too. Katsuki rolled his eyes. He wanted to snap back, but he saw the dark circles under Uraraka's eyes and how haggard she looked. I get it already, round face, he said instead. Ida patted Uraraka's back gently as she wiped her eyes. Did Awazawa said anything about the investigation? He asked quietly. No, just that they're still trying to do their fucking best. Katsuki scoffed. He looked at his phone. A message that taunted him. Deku. Izuku felt ill. The feeling of the towel on his chest was overwhelming. It was like all his senses were on overdrive, his nerves firing signals rapidly. He shivered again. He had sat in the cold room for hours. He lost track of how much time had passed. His thigh felt frozen. The pants he was wearing was still slightly damp from the water was poured on him. He wanted to shake off the towel, but he was really, really cold. His mind had been nudging him to rest for a while now, but he couldn't sleep. The fatigue sank deep into his bones, and he warily blinked his eyes. His head was not helping. A headache steadily building, getting progressively worse since the cold water was thrown over him. His stomach cramped again, this time followed by a lurch. Izuku felt like puking. Hey, shitty nerd. Yes, Kachan, that's only presented in my head, Izuku thought tiredly, only fidgeted uncomfortably. His kneecap really hurt. He looked down at his chest. The cuts had long since stopped bleeding. The dried blood washed away. There was slightly inflamed at the sides of the wound and throbbing slightly. He wondered if they were infected. He wonders if the scars will ever go away. He tried to move his arm, only for more pain to shoot down his joints. Izuku really hoped his arms were okay. Have you thought of any other fucking ideas to get out? Or are you just gonna lie there and die slowly? I don't know, Kachan. I can't use my quirk, and my knee is completely fucked, and I'm really, really tired. Well, don't just fucking give up. Izuku didn't reply. It wasn't like the voice Kachan was real anyway. He missed Mom, if he was right. If he was right, he had already been here for at least 2 days. She was probably really worried. He hoped the teachers had made progress. He felt stuck, alone. The thoughts that plagued his head earlier returned, and he angrily held back the tears that threatened to appear. He knew his emotions were high-strung, his treacherous mouth unable to hold back the cries. He also knew Vex really enjoyed it. Vex. His eyes gazed over him as he remembered the touch, the bare hands fluttering over his body. He gasped slightly as he tried to even his unstable breathing. Snap out of it, Deku. Don't just wait for the heroes to come. Work that big brain of yours, stupid nerd. The door opened again, and Izuku's stomach sank. Vex peeked around the door, looking really happy. Hello, Izuku. How are you? Did you sleep at all? He walked in, tugging on his gloves, not expecting a reply, as Izuku never answered him once. He walked to his metal tray. I hope the bath this morning helped. You kind of look fuzzy half of the time. I think it's because I really knocked your head so hard. I was almost afraid that I killed you this time. He started monologuing to himself as Izuku struggled to keep his face blank, fear welling up inside of him. Izuku really hated feeling so weak against him, but he couldn't help it. His mental state felt like a crumbling sandcastle, slowly chipping away with each contact his skin made with Vex. You know, I had a lot of fun talking to your friend Kachan. He wasn't happy to see me type out the cutesy nickname of his, Vex continued. He's acting so strong, too. He called me names, and he threatened me, telling me that he would kill me if I killed you. Oh, yeah, he was using his phone, Izuku thought, eyes scanning Vex's body for the sign of his phone. He saw it. sitting in his back pocket. A small hope began to burrow. I wonder if I can try to grab it. I mean, it's not like I want to kill you. Izuku really hated the sound of his voice. That would ruin the fun. Vex kneeled down as his hand crossed on the top of his knee. Your wound seems slightly better. Looks like the bath and lotion helped. Some of them are even scabbing over. He hummed, a finger poking around the cuts. Oh God, can he stop touching me? Hey, Izuku. Vex's tone was high, like he was gossiping with a friend. You want to know something? At Izuku's silence, he continued unbothered. Your friend, Kachan. What do you think about if I brought him here to join you? No! Izuku surprised himself with the intensity of his cry. He cursed as Vex looked gleeful. Izuku, you stupid idiot. You just let him know how important Kachan is to you. You have such a good friend, Izuku. Vex took out his phone and looked at the screen tauntingly. Did you know that he offered himself in your place? Izuku felt his breath still. What? Kachan? What? He's such a good friend. Are you guys together by any chance? He couldn't process what was being said. The only thing repeating in his mind was that Kachan offered himself to him. No, not Kachan. Why would he do that? Why? No answer? Vex pouted. So, you don't mind if I go get him? Izuku spoke, his voice struggling to stay steady. Why take Kachan when you have me already? Not satisfying enough answer. Vex sighed. Izuku's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know how serious Vex was, but you won't be able to get him, Izuku said slowly. Your quirk only works on one person. Clever boy, Vex replied. What if I threatened your life? Your Kachan would fold like a paper towel. You seem to not know how much you mean to your Kachan. Don't speak his name like that, Izuku thought, his fatigue draining away with flashes of anger. When Izuku took too long to answer, Vex stood up. Guess you really don't mind if I take him. Maybe you'll feel better if you had a friend to join you. No, Vex, don't. Izuku broke as he begged. What do you want me to do? Vex ignored him as he walked to the door. Vex, please, Izuku yelled. Vex? Vex sighed, sounding exasperated, as he turned back, a glint in his eyes as his hands procured a black cloth. He tied the black cloth around his eyes, and Izuku's breathing picked up at the panic as his world was enshrouded in darkness. Please, he begged. Not Kachan. Please, I'll do anything. He felt hands on his chin as Vex's breath puffs against his ears. Don't worry, Izuku. I'll bring back your Kachan to you. Just sit here and wait. Izuku sobbed. Vex, please, I'm sorry. Don't take Kachan. You shouldn't have snapped at me, Izuku. Vex sighed, disappointment in his voice. You were doing so well being docile, too. A word of your boyfriend and you react like this. I'm sorry, I'll do anything, Vex. Izuku's voice broke. He felt his heart hammering, threatening to burst through his throat. He fucked up. Vex was going to take Kachan, all because he was stupid. He knew what Vex wanted. His obedience. He can't let Vex take Kachan. His desperate pleas got louder as he felt something dry shoved into his mouth. He pushed against it with his tongue, and shouts muffled as Vex gagged him. No! No! He heard Vex stand up as his hands on Izuku left him. He threw himself forward, ignoring his wounds, screaming in pain, and how his head throbbed harder. He shouted, I'll bring back a surprise for you, Izuku. Don't worry. The sound of the door closing felt like a vice around Izuku's heart. Vex lied. He didn't actually want to go capture Kachan. He just didn't expect it to work so well. He knew that they were close, but not this close. Vex giggled as faint, muffled shouts could be heard through the door. He decided to blindfold and gag him on a whim. He thought if Izuku stewed in the darkness of his own mind, unable to call out to Vex to stop, he would break faster. Izuku's shouts were so loud that it could be heard through the soundproof door. He loved hearing the noises of his victims when they became panicked. He knew that Izuku was calling out to him, desperate for Vex to not go after his friend. He would be worried his neighbors could hear, but he shut the windows in advance to prevent the noise from traveling. He went back to his kitchen, preparing his food for lunch, as the shouts continued, but choked off occasionally. "Ah, was Izuku crying?" He was so tempted to go back and take a look at him, but he wanted to let Izuku stew in his own panic for a while more. He could go back in at night. Izuku knew that the panic would absolutely destroy Izuku, thinking that he went after his friend because of his own mistakes. Vex loved playing games like this. Pain was an art, he mused. Physical pain may be satisfying, but there's nothing more satisfying than breaking your victim's mind. And that had worked so well on Izuku, seeing how he had immediately broken begged Vex, saying he could do anything to him. Well, he most definitely will. He just has to wait patiently for a few more hours. It was quiet. Vex knew that Izuku had stopped shouting 2 hours ago into the panic he worked himself into. Still, he had waited. He knew that would drive Izuku crazy, the fact that he could have his kachan in his hands by now. He brushed off the remains of his dinner, rubbing his thumbs in anticipation. Time to have a little act. First, he opened up the living room front door, making a loud stomping sound before slamming it shut. He waited a few moments before pushing open the door and peering inside the dim room. The sight that greeted him was way better than he expected. Upon his entry, Izuku had snapped his head up, and he had started to struggle immediately. Izuku looked absolutely wrecked. The gag around his mouth soaked through, the black silk around his eyes damp with tears, as liquid pulled at his chin when the new ones leaked out. Izuku tried to shout as he struggled on the floor, arms flexing against the chains. Vex shut the door, stepping in as he waited. Izuku whipped his head around like he was trying to listen for something. The chains clanked loudly as Izuku strained his body around, then forward. Vex got too impatient. He wanted to hear Izuku again. He walked forward in quick steps as he took the gag out of Izuku's mouth, heart fluttering. He had anticipated this for so long. Izuku's sweet, sweet voice of despair. Cut. Izuku's throat sounded so hoarse, and Vex absolutely loved it. Izuku hesitated, then changed his mind as he called out, "Did..." He stopped again, head tilted. "I'm back, Izuku." Vex couldn't keep his hands to himself any longer, placing one on Izuku's head, patting the soft curls. Izuku flinched as usual. "I got you a present," he whispered excitedly. Izuku whimpered, "No, Kachan." When no one replied, obviously, Izuku's voice rose higher in pitch. "Kachan!" His voice was hoarse, desperate, broken. Vex watched as Izuku struggled hard, and how blood welded up at his cuffs around his wrist. Izuku's voice broke as he said, "Vex, don't you dare harm Kachan." "Isn't that a bit too late to say, when he's currently unconscious outside?" Vex pouted as he sullened reply, "No, no, no." Izuku bowed his head as he hiccuped, "Kachan, Izuku." He choked and gagged like he was going to vomit. It was fascinating to watch a person panic to the point of being unable to breathe. Izuku heaved, but nothing came out besides drool. Vaguely, Vex remembered not feeding Izuku at all. Whoops. He really should remember. Did he even let him drink water? He shook himself out of his thoughts. Izuku was still gagging, but he calmed himself after a while besides the occasional coughs. Please, not Kachan. Hurt me all you want, but not Kachan, please. Izuku was murmuring. Vex watched as Izuku's head swiveled like he was trying to see out of the blindfold. Where is he? I want to see him, please. You don't want me to hurt your Kachan? Vex quietly asked as he tightened his hands around Izuku's head. The boy nodded frantically as he continued to let out the little desperate pleas. Vex gently placed a hand on his face, and he stilled, almost frozen. Then I want you to let out your screams, Izuku. I want to hear you, understand? Okay. Izuku breathed out, voice soft. Vex was ecstatic. Fantastic. He can't wait. I was also lying about you being a bad boy, Izuku. Vex's arms wound around Izuku excitedly. He couldn't control the smile on his face. You're such a good boy. You act exactly how I expect you to. You're the best, Izuku, he cooed, his hands running through Izuku's curls as he pressed his damp cheeks against his. Such a good boy. I'll even feed you now, okay? Izuku silently trembled in his hands, but he didn't push himself away unlike the other times. Okay, we're done. Yeah, it's a wrap. We got it. Okay, so this one, oh my god. It's, I can't believe it. It's so good. I love the acting that has to go in with this. It's so cool. But also I do apologize for it took me a little bit longer to make this. And it's going to take me a little bit longer to edit it, probably not. But yeah, because I got sick with COVID, and COVID kind of like my voice, my throat was like, no, like right now I'm not 100%, but I'm like good enough to go back to working this and doing all the things. So I'm having a very good time with this story. It is so heartbreaking. My poor baby is in danger. But I love it. I love it so much. And you guys that are sticking around with this, love you so much. And we're going to go into the next year popping. Okay. All right. So if you want to see more of this, you know what to do.